Hi everyone. So in this session, I'm going to discuss how to externalize browser and URL information in Selenium. Okay. So last time we have created this base test class. In this base test class, we are writing the common logic like browser launching and loading a web page into browser. But problem in this case here, which browser suppose you want to launch? Here we have mentioned one variable which contain browser value. Now right now it contain what value? Edge. So it will launch which browser? It will launch Edge browser. But suppose tomorrow I want to launch Chrome browser. Then what we need to do? Then we need to go to the source code. In the source code here we need to modify. If user is interested to launch Chrome browser, then we need to modify the source code. Okay, then we require to open Firefox. Then what we need to do? Again, we need to modify the source code. So the problem is that whenever you want to change the browser, so you need to modify the source code. And as well as, so now here we are launching which URL in a web browser? This URL. Suppose tomorrow I want to launch another URL in a web page. Then we need to modify the source code. So these things can be externalized. It means can we externalize these things without touching source code? Can we pass browser information and the URL that we want to load into web page from the external source? Yes, we can externalize this thing. If we externalize this thing, then we can make it more standard application. Why? Because you may be required to change the browser and you may be required to change the URL. So every time we not required to modify the source code. So for that purpose, we are externalizing browser and URL information. How we can externalize browser and URL information? In this session, we are going to discuss. So if you want to externalize browser information and URL that you want to load, so you can externalize by passing this information from properties file. So you can check here. Here we have src-test.java, and here we have one more package, src-test resources. So under src-test resources, so this folder contains whatever resources we have required for your test classes. Those resources we have need to place under src test resources folder. Any resources like any file that you required, so you can place those resources under src test resources. So under src test resources, which types file we have need to place? If any resources which are required related to the test classes, those resources you can place under src test resources folder. So here I am going to create one properties file, and under that properties file I am going to place browser and URL information. What is a properties file? Properties file is the thing which store the data in the form of key and value pair. Key and value pair where key and value both are string type. Key and value where key and value both are string type. It means you can create one properties file where you can pass information in the form of key and value, where key and value both are string type. So let's now we create one properties file and we are externalizing browser and URL information. So go to the src test resources folder. Under that resources folder, I'm going to create new package first. I'm going to create one new package. I give the package name like config because under this package, I'm going to place configuration related files. So I create one for package with name config, and under that package, I'm going to create one properties file. So how you can create properties file? Just right click on your package, go to the new, and here you have option file, and click on the file option and give the properties file name. So you can create properties file with any name. So here I am going to create properties file with name configurations because here it contains configuration related information. So that's why I have given here name like configuration.properties. You can create properties file with any name, but it is always recommended to give a standard name. So I'm created one properties file. Under that properties file, we can define key and value pair. So here we need to maintain one key like browser, which contain browser information. Let's here we pass the browser information age. And now we have maintain one more key with name like test URL that contains the URL value that we want to launch, which URL we want to launch. So we can copy this URL and paste here. So now we externalize these both information, browser information and URL information. So which browser you want to launch? Tomorrow you have not required to modify the source code. Just pass the value from here. Whatever browser information you passing from here, that browser will be launched. Now next steps we have required. Okay, we have created here properties file. Now next step here, how we can read that properties file information. We need to read that properties file information in our base test class. So we have base test class. So in base test class, we need to read those properties file informations. How we can read? Let's understand. So here we have one properties file like here like configuration.properties, and that properties file contain two properties. One is a browser and second one is a test URL. Let's it contain two properties, browser and test URL. Browser and test URL information. So this is the properties file. I have given name like configuration.properties. Now, if you want to read this properties file informations, then you can use FileReader. In Java, we have FileReader object. Using FileReader, we can read the data from the file. And in Java, we have one properties object. In Java, we have one Java object that is a properties object also. Properties object store the data in the form of key and value pair. In which form? Key and value pair. Where key and value both are string type. So here in Java, we have one properties object that will store the data in the form of key and value, where key and value both are string type. So we can create one properties object in Java also, and we can read the data from the properties file, and we can dump that data into the Java properties object. So whenever you require in your application those properties values, you can access using Java properties object. So here I'm going to read the data from the properties file using FileReader. So I'm going to use the FileReader object. FileReader what does? FileReader reads the data from application properties file and load the data into the Java properties object. So what it does, it will read the data from the properties file, and after reading the data, it will load that data into properties object. Into which object it will load? Into properties object. So now in properties file, you have two property, browser and test URL. Now it will create two properties here. Yes, no, like a browser and its value is a age. And now we have one more test URL which contain the URL value. The URL this one. So now what we need to do? We need to create one FileReader object. FileReader will read the data, and after reading the data, it will load that data into the Java properties object. And now using Java properties object, we can read that properties value like browser and test URL. Let's try to implement it. So go to our Eclipse IDE. Let's now we are going to modify the BaseTest class that we have created yesterday. So let's here we declare WebDriver. Let's now we remove both line here. We have not required this line because I'm going to externalize this information. So from outside we are reading the informations like browser information and URL information. So first what we need to do, I will declare here one FileReader object, public FileReader. Using FileReader, we can read the data from the properties file. So I created one FileReader, and here we created one properties object also. So here we created Java properties object, that's available in java.util package. So I've created one properties object, properties equal to new properties. So here I have created one properties object. What is a properties object? Property object, it is a class that are available in java.util package which hold the data in the form of key and value pair, where key and value both are string type allow. Now I have created here properties object. Now go to inside setup method. Inside setup method, what we need to do? First, we need to check. Actually, if you going to execute this method first time, your WebDriver is not created. If your WebDriver is not created, so first we need to check if WebDriver is not created, if WebDriver value equal to null, if WebDriver equal to null, then first before going to create WebDriver, before going to launch WebDriver, we need to read the information from the properties file. Okay, so if you want to read the data from the properties file, you can read the data from the properties file using FileReader. So you can create here one FileReader object, FileReader equal to new FileReader, and from which file you want to read the data. You can pass that path, you can pass that file name, where file is available. So here we need to know the location of the file, where file is available, from which file we need to read the data. How we can find the file location? Let's try to understand how we can find the file location. Let's first we try to understand how we can find the file location. So here first we create one class under browser demo, one test class. Let's here we just create one demo class just for understanding how we can find the file location. So under that demo, I have created main method. Okay. So your project name is your directory name is a Selenium learning project. Your directory is available which location? If you want to find your directory location, so in Java we have one class system. System class has some property. On the system class, you can call one get property method. This is a static method. A static method you can call using the class name. So we have some system property like user.directory. User.directory. This property, what return? It will return your directory location. So I will store in one variable and let's try to print first tuple and check what is your directory location. If you run this class, now you can check here. Let's run it. You can check here. Your directory location, this is your directory location. Okay, once you get your directory location, you can check here. Under your directory location, you have one folder src test.java resources. Under src test resources, we have config folder. Under config folder, we have configuration.properties file. So what we can do, it will return your directory, your project directory location. And once you reach to your directory location, your project directory location, then you can concat the path here. Under your directory location, you have src folder, src /, and then you have one test folder. Under test, you have one resource folder. Under resource, you have config folder, resources folder. Under resources folder, you have config folder. Under config folder, you have configuration.properties file. Let's save it and again run it. So you can check here. Now you are able to find out your file location path. So you can use this line to find the location of your file that you want to read. So come back in your base test class. Now before reading the data from the file reader, first we need to find the path. So here we find the path. Here we paste that line. And now we need to pass that path into FileReader object. Let's we pass that path. Now FileReader what does? FileReader read the data from the file. And now after reading the data, whatever data we are reading from the file using FileReader, that data we want to load into properties object. So on properties object, we can call one method load method. You can check it, load method. Load method what does? It reads a property list from the input character string and load the data into the properties object. So which data needs to be loaded? Whatever data read by the property file reader. So whatever data read file reader from the file, that data we are loading into the properties object. Now once the data is loaded, now you can get information from the properties object. So which information we have required? We require browser information. So how we can get the information from the properties object? You can check here. Properties object store the data in the form of key value pair. If you want to get any value, you can get a value by specify the key on the properties object. On properties object, you can call one method getProperty by specify the key of the property, and then it will return the value of that property. So here on properties object, you can check here, we are calling one method getProperty, you can check here. And now here we can specify the property name. What the property name? Browser. Now, if that browser information is a Chrome, then we need to launch Chrome browser. Now we need to modify this code everywhere. So now here we are also modify. Properties.getProperties. Okay, let's save it. And now we need to change here also. Okay. Now next, what we need to do? Now we need to read the URL value also. So here I need to read the URL value from the properties file. So we have properties object. On that properties object, we need to call get property. And now we need to pass that property name. What is the property name? Test URL. So now in this way, you can check here. We have make browser information and URL externalize. So now it raised an exception here. This line raised an exception. Then you need to add throws. This line also raised an exception. Just you need to add throws keyword. Now you can check here. Now you have externalize browser information and the URL that you want to load in a web page. Let's now we try to run this our test case. So last time we have created this test case browser title tester. Let's we try to run and check. Now you can check here your test case is successfully passed. Okay, one configuration is failed. Okay, some error. Let's check here. After test, go to your base test class. Okay, let's save it once again. And now we need to check what problem. Okay, what is the problem? The problem here, file not found. Okay, file name and directory name is incorrect. So check here, your directory location is config. Okay, here name is misspelled. So there is a config. Let's save it again and run your test case. Okay, again file not found. So okay, here one slash is missing. So let's again save it and go to the browser title tester. Again run the test case and let's check here. Now you can check here your browser is launched. Now web page is loaded. Now your test case is passed. Now in this way you can check here. You can externalize browser information in the URL. Now tomorrow suppose you want to launch Chrome browser, nothing you need to do. Just make changes here. You can supply the browser information from this properties file without touching your source code. You can launch Chrome browser. So now here that is a more better. You can externalize browser information and the URL that you want to load in a web page. I hope it's clear. Thank you.